I'm going to tell you about a time when I got into a physical fight with a former student and wound up just laughing about it. Now, this is a white belt. And if you've done martial arts before, you know that a white belt signifies the very lowest level, the very beginner in whatever sport you're training in. And for some time, I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I wanted to find a more active way to work out and that sort of thing. And it was great. It's a great skill if you ever had the opportunity to learn it. But I lived in a small town, and I was going to a gym where I would occasionally run into people that I knew from teaching at the local school many years before. So as I'm going through my training, I'm a few months in at this point, and I have to skip a class one day and then go to a different class in the afternoon, and in walks a former student of mine, someone that I had when they were a sixth grader several years before, and now they're about a junior in high school, old enough to be in the adults jiu-jitsu class, and they are quite a bit bigger than they were in sixth grade. Now, fortunately, he said, "Hey, Mr. Alpert, it's great to see you. I'm so glad that we're in the same class today." And goes on to tell me that he's been doing jiu-jitsu for many years, pretty much since I had him in sixth grade. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, boy, am I glad that I built a good relationship with this student and not a rocky one. Because this kid knows what he's doing, and he's quite a bit bigger than he used to be. So we go through class together, and you train for a while, you do some skills-based stuff, then at the end of every class, you get to roll or spar or fight, basically, someone else in the class. And of course, this student rolls over and says, "Mr. Alpert, do you want to roll with me?" And I say, "Absolutely, buddy, let's do it." Now we get about 10 seconds into sparring, and I realize I am in deep trouble. This kid knows how to handle himself, and I do not in this situation. And at about 90 seconds in, he pauses and says, "You know, Mr. Alpert, you can be aggressive with me. It's okay. I think I can take it." And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm doing everything I can not to die. I don't have another gear of aggression in me. And needless to say, I get completely decimated by my former student. And afterwards, we sit back together and laugh a little bit. And I tell him that I'm proud of him. I'm proud of all the effort that he's put in. Clearly, it's paid off. And driving home, I just remember being filled with such joy that day, because I remember that student and also that whole class of students. I taught them in about my fourth year of teaching sixth grade, and I just remember that that's really when I hit my stride with being good at building relationships with students, and I have so many sweet memories. And that skill of building relationships with students is what gives us those lifelong memories and actually makes a big impact on the students themselves. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Now, I've been involved with classroom management for a long time. Obviously, as a teacher, I did a lot of classroom management. As an administrator, I coach teachers on classroom management. As a professional development person, I train teachers and schools in how to effectively implement classroom management strategies. I've done a lot of research on the topic, and in all of my research, all of my conversations with other educators, all of my observations, all of my teaching myself, I have found that classroom management really boils down to two concepts: structure and relationship. Now, when we talk about structure, we're talking about the procedures, the routines, the clearly articulated expectations, the way that your school and the way that your classroom runs, the things that we've already talked about quite a bit so far this year. And now that we're moving into the second half of the year, we're going to be talking about that crucial component, relationships. And I would argue that both skills are 100% necessary. So much so that we're going to be diving into the details of relationship for the rest of the year. And today we'll be talking about how to do that in your classroom from day one. First, I'd like to make a clear case as to why it's so important and worth our time. Now, when students have a positive relationship with at least one adult in the building, this creates what's called school connectedness. And school connectedness is defined as a student's belief that school staff care about their academic and individual well-being. Now, the benefits to school connectedness is that it protects kids from all sorts of threats. For example, according to the CDC, school connectedness decreases the likelihood that students will participate in certain antisocial activities like substance abuse and violence. It also reduces emotional distress and thoughts of suicide among adolescents, and it increases the chances that students will make healthy choices like healthy physical activity and healthy eating. It also increases grades, test scores, attendance, and graduation rates. Another study from Professor Dorian Wilson at the University of Colorado found that students respond well to well-managed and well-organized classrooms, especially when they feel that the teacher who runs that classroom cares about them as a person. And teachers that showed empathy, friendliness, and a sincere care for students saw a great reduction in behavioral incidents and also saw an increase in academics and motivation to learn. So today we're going to talk about how to build relationships with students at the very beginning of the school year. We're going to hear from two great teachers today. One, a kindergarten teacher, Haley Mostel. She's going to share a strategy that she uses to help students share about themselves and build community in the classroom. We're also going to hear from a high school teacher, Luke Fritz, who shares his strategy for letting students know about him and building a relationship with them right away as the year begins. Now, they offer their perspectives on how this works in their classrooms, and the actual activity isn't always critically important. It's just important that your teachers take this time to begin the relationship building process with their students. There's dozens of ways to do it. This is just one or two of many. Now, I know we're currently about halfway through the school year, and you might be asking yourself, why are we talking about this now? Why aren't we talking about this more towards the beginning of the year? Well, at the beginning of the year, structure is so important that that's what we focus on. But it's never too late to implement these relationship building strategies if you didn't do it at the beginning of the year. You can start off day one of the second semester with some of these activities and still have a lot of success. Also, as we look forward to next year, we get into the spring and start thinking more and more and more about the following year. Consider how you're going to implement these strategies from day one next year to use them to the greatest impact. So without further ado, here are two clips from Haley Mostel and Luke Fritz.
So Haley, why do you think building strong relationships with your students is important for classroom management?
Well, I teach kindergarten, and when they come into the classroom for the first time, a lot of them are so scared. They don't know me. I'm a new adult that they're going to be with for hours a day. And so I think it's just so important to build a trusting relationship with kids. And one of the things that I do that with that right away is I kind of let them into my life and teach them about what my life looks like, and teach them about I have a dog and this is where I live, and show them pictures of my life and just let them learn about me so that they can trust me. And then I'll also, ask them questions about themselves and try to get to know about their interests and things that they like. And they love that too, because they like talking about, themselves and their family and their interests, and kids can kind of connect to that, and they connect to each other that way as well. And so I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. What is one explicit way that you learn about your students and that they get to bring themselves to the classroom?
Having conversations with them is great, but they love to bring examples into the classroom, and I do as well. And so we start out the year doing this thing called our All About Me bags, and I always start it out. So I give the kids just a brown lunch bag to take home, and they can fill it with 5 things to kind of represent themselves. It might be their favorite toys, it might be a picture of something, picture of their family, a drawing that they've done, something that they're proud of, and something that they want to share with their friends and their teacher. So I'll start out by doing that so that they get to know a little bit more about me, and then they can see as an example of what they can do, and they get excited about it because they get to know that they get to bring something in that is important to them. And it kind of gets them excited about school, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of the main goals of building student relationship is you want them to feel connected with you, but you also want them to feel safe at school. And you want them to want to come to school every single day. And when kids walk into the classroom, like happy to be there, it just makes you so proud, as a teacher, because you've done something right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I bet they are so excited when they get to share, when it's their turn to share.
So excited. Yeah. I always say, like, practice with your family in complete sentences, or but they usually end up just like holding it. This is my dog, or this is my toy, which is totally great.
Yeah. Because it's like one of the first times in
right.
kindergarten of school that they're doing anything.
Mhm.
So that's expected, but
Yes.
how fun.
I'm always curious when you, like the first day of class, right? When you have your students come for the first time and you're kind of given the pitch about like, what is this class about?
Mhm.
How do you frame that? Like, how do you explain to the students what they're going to be doing for that year?
You know, it's always strange. I think administrators typically want teachers to do a syllabus at the first day. Here's everything you're going to learn, like an overview.
Itemized and
Itemized
in
an
a
overview.
table and
And, you
connected
know,
to the standards.
Right, exactly. And I do give that to students, but I think the main thing that I do for students, as you said, to help introduce them to the course is I tell them all about who I am as a person. This is me. This is not just like, teacher, Mr. Fritz. My name is Luke. Here's all the things that I'm interested in. I have a daughter that was just born. I was married to my wife in 2016. Lots of information. And then I also obviously tell them I have dual citizenship. I've traveled a lot. I have done this. This is my high school experience. This is where I went to college. And then I end off that letter with, this is the expectations that I have for you. And then an even bigger section, these are the expectations you as students should have for me. Like, I should always be making this class relevant and interesting to you. If I'm not, then I'm not doing my job well. So let's help do that. And then at the end of the letter, I ask them to do the same thing back to me. Please tell me about who you are outside the classroom. What are your goals and interests in life? Have you ever traveled anywhere? Do you have any, interesting stories about those travels? I think starting from that, framework of, we're just a community. We're trying to get to know each other, and what are we interested in? I think typically students get pretty quickly that, like, oh yeah, this guy actually cares about who I am because he's sharing a ton about himself. And I always tell my students to write back, I would never ask you to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. So if I'm starting this out with a letter and asking you to write a page or so back to me, like, I'm demonstrating that. Like, I'm telling you right off the bat all about me. And then a lot of times I'll get students writing back saying, well, you told me all about yourself, so I think this is only fair.
Yeah.
Great.
That's cool. Do you, if students write you quite a bit about, who they are, where they're coming from, their hopes, their expectations for the class, that sort of thing. Is there any follow-up after that? Do you respond to those letters? Yeah,
every single student gets multiple comments back from me, whether if it's a handwritten letter, I'll write in the margins. Oh, that's so cool. I also, enjoy sports or whatever. And then if it's an electronic copy, it's multiple just comments. I always try to do at least 3 to 4 comments on every student's paper, which takes a lot of time, but I also want them to see right off the bat that I'm really invested in who they are as a person and that I read it. Like, they need to see that I have gone through, and sometimes students will leave like jokes and I'll say, oh, that's so funny. Like, and I can envision them writing it and, maybe wondering, is he actually going to see
put
that?
A little Easter egg in there.
Yeah, a little Easter egg. And then I'll find it and, thanks for mentioning that. That's really funny. And I think setting the tone, like, it is hard to give that much feedback on a consistent basis, especially when you're balancing really big class loads and lots of sections. But if you can try to set the tone from the beginning of, your work will be seen and I will give you some feedback on how it went or what could be improved or whatever. In this case, it's just, who you are as a person and what I'm interested in. Then I think that's really helpful, that students know that you're looking.
I hope you found those conversations helpful regardless of what level you're at. I think both teachers take a unique approach and you can implement those strategies at any level with a little bit of altering. Thanks again for joining us, folks, this month. We will continue with relationship building strategies next month. I hope to see you then.